Hello, and welcome to the Sunset Gratitude Summit. I'm your host, Emily Silva Hoekstra, the author of Sunset Gratitude. And today, my guest is Emily Bond. She's the author of Hot Mess and Husband Material and is marketing director for the world's largest travel company. She's married to her husband, Matt, and their parents, two toddler Atlas, and reside in Chicago. She's forever in pursuit of the world's best chocolate chip cookie, and I can't wait to share her powerful story with you. Let's get right into it. Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking to me.
Hi, other Emily. My pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
So I met you at a Creative Mornings in San Diego. You gave a very powerful talk. I was very inspired by you. I met with you at your house to talk about publishing, and you were so gracious to help me talk about how to get an agent. And I've just been following you since then. So maybe 8 years, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, definitely a long time.
Yeah. And then last year you posted something that shocked me
Yeah.
and I was so sad. And I want you to share your post that you posted in October. Let us
Yeah.
know what you told the world.
Yeah. So by October of 2023, I had been living with a breast cancer diagnosis, stage 2, since July of 23. So I was kind of keeping that information to myself for a good 3 months or so. Unintentional and intentional in some ways to have kept it that secret. I think you kind of nailed it on the head when you just said you posted something that made me so sad. I knew that sharing my diagnosis was going to be the last thing that anybody expected me to share. My friends and followers are made up of people who range from, family to close acquaintances to friends to coworkers to people like you who I've met at events that have followed me mostly for my career as an author. And regardless of who you are on that spectrum or how well I know you or how long I've known you, again, this information sharing that I had this stage 2 breast cancer diagnosis was going to be traumatic and sad for anybody. And that's a big reason that I didn't share it for so long, because I knew that no matter how well you knew me, this is the kind of information that's going to stick with you and sort of ruin the rest of your day or make you think a little bit differently for the rest of your day, maybe even the next morning. And so yeah, it was something that ultimately I knew I wanted to share, but finding the right time to do it was always my challenge. But yeah, so I had to kind of tell the world my next biggest piece of news was not a new book, it was not some amazing travel, the things that people are used to seeing. It was this really serious medical dilemma.
And you did it very tastefully, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I think I love what you said, where you said, instead of thoughts and prayers, please do reads and shares because
Mhm.
you're very young.
Yeah, I'm 37. I definitely had the cancer while I was 36. I didn't know that I had it. And possibly even longer. I mean, I was diagnosed very, very soon after my 37th birthday. And my oncology team thinks that I had the cancer for at least 10 months. So that puts me at
Wow.
36, potentially 35. So,
So I know that for me, the doctors are like, start your mammograms when you're 40, maybe
mhm.
get one or one every year or every other year. So you probably hadn't even had one yet. So how did you know that you needed to go in
Yeah.
to get checked?
So kind of relating back to the reads and shares thing, I read a post on Facebook, probably, so this was July for me, but February of the same year, I saw that a girl that I went to college with that just lived down the hall, so same age, married, two little boys, very easily could be me, looks like me, talks like me, walks like me, um, had a breast cancer diagnosis. She was undergoing all of the same things that I eventually also underwent. And it shocked me just the same as my news shocked everybody else. It was like, I didn't know her very well anymore, but I was like, oh my gosh, like this girl that lived down the hall from me is going through this crazy thing. And then there was another girl that we had just gone to her wedding, and her wedding was in June. And I think by August, this was the year before she was diagnosed, again in her 30s, just came back from her honeymoon, like, again, looks like me, talks like me, walks like me. I'm like, okay, it's starting to get a little kind of scary. So it was just a bit of paranoia of like, these people who all are my same age and same demographic and easily could be me are seemingly getting diagnosed with breast cancer. And how do we like stay on top of that? Oh, well, you do mammograms. Okay, well, we look up what's the age for a mammogram. It's 40. And at this time, I'm 36, and I'm thinking 40 is 4 years away. That's so long. And how many more people will I know that are my age that are going to be diagnosed in that time? And so I had no reason, no physiological reasons. It was more up here, just like, I want a baseline. At least, same reason you go and get a physical, right? You get like a baseline, and then year over year, you see if things have changed. So I'm like, I'm going to see if I can just get in earlier than 40. And, I know everybody's hospital systems are different. But with mine, I could literally go on their website, navigate to the mammogram or breast health page, and I was able to literally schedule a mammogram on my phone. I never even had to call anybody. I was just a few clicks on my phone, and here I have an appointment. I did have to wait a bit, like maybe a month and a half or so, because it wasn't an emergency situation, and there's a backup. But all I did after I scheduled my mammogram was contact my insurance and double check that this was covered, even though I'm not 40 yet. And like I said, everybody's plans are different. Everybody's medical systems are different, but my insurance was like, yep, as long as it's a preventative, and not a diagnostic mammogram, then it's covered. And so they were like, you can print this out and bring it to your appointment. So I went in, and of course, like, they just asked me, like, do you have any concerns? I'm like, nope, just preventative, baseline, whatever. Then they kind of told me like a lot. It's not uncommon to be called back at all from your first mammogram. So just like keep that in mind. Anyways, I went in, I had my imaging done, and I want to say it was the next day. Yeah, I think it was the next day. I had my results uploaded in my chart, found nothing. Unremarkable. Everything was clear. No follow-up needed. Wasn't being called back. Couldn't have A+, right? And then it was a couple of days later, like just very, very coincidentally, that 2 days later, I was in the bathtub, and I was just affording myself a late night bath, got the kid to bed. I'm like, normally I would just go straight to sleep myself, but I'm like, I'm gonna take a bath, relax. And I was just kind of looking down at my chest, and I noticed that my left nipple was like pretty flat looking. And I'd never noticed that before, ever. And the only reason that I even thought twice about that is because, as I had mentioned, there was the girl that reads and shares, right? The girl that I read her initial post from February, the girl I went to college with, she had posted, well, I had found out that her only symptom was a flatter nipple, or it was a nipple change. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know if it meant flatter. I didn't know if it meant color. I just know that her symptom was a quote nipple change, which I didn't even know was a thing. So I was just like, could that be? I mean, what? I mean, no way. Like, I just had a mammogram literally yesterday, come back clear. This is nothing. This is, my body looks like now. I had a kid. I'm, 37. This is just how it is. Yeah, I'm not worried. I basically said, I'll keep an eye on it. I'll see if tomorrow in the morning it kind of goes back to normal. Maybe it was a temperature thing. I don't know, like, my son was laying on me for a while I was putting him to sleep. Maybe he squished me. So I just kind of said to myself, I'll check in the morning. And so in the morning I woke up and I flashed myself in the mirror, and I was like, nope, still looks the same. So this is, strange. I still think it's nothing, obviously. Like, I just had this mammogram clear, so it's definitely not cancer, but it's something. And I just made an appointment with my OBGYN for a breast exam, just the same thing that they do at your annual appointment when they kind of give you a feel around. Just made an appointment. That wasn't until after the weekend. I wasn't worried. I wasn't anxious about this appointment. I was more embarrassed than anything. I'm like, here I am wasting this person's time, going in there. And I mean, I said up and down many different times, this is probably nothing. I'm so embarrassed. I know this is nothing. I mean, I told everybody there, the nurse, the receptionist, like, I tried to kind of excuse myself from even being there because it was so silly. But sure enough, my OBGYN said that he felt a firmness in my nipple. never said lump, never really said cancer. He actually suggested that it might be something totally else, like a duct issue. So again, I'm not really, alarmed. I had the clear mammogram. I don't have any family history. It's really not looking anything malignant. But yeah, he sent me on to do the next step testing, which was an ultrasound, just really discover what it was. And it's common practice to get your ultrasound and then have the radiologist tell you your results while you're there. Everybody, whether they're good, bad, or otherwise, you're told before you left. So I did my ultrasound, no issues. Waited in the lobby for my turn to basically be told it's nothing, go home. And when I sat down with the radiologist, the first word out of her mouth was unfortunately. And at that, the air got sucked out of the room. And it was sort of the first moment of the rest of my life. So very hard to recount the specifics of that conversation. I just remember it started with unfortunately. The word solid mass was used, which is how they know it's not a cyst or something like that. And then furthermore, suspicious lymph node activity. So at this point, the cancer had already spread to my lymph nodes, and that was also detected that same appointment. And I mean, I just don't really, everything just became white noise. There was another woman in the room, the breast care navigator, who kind of takes over from there and helps you get set up with the rest of the appointments, like biopsies and things like that. But it was essentially the last thing that I thought would happen to me, and realize again, the fear that I had, if not them, why not? If them, why not me? Well, it was me. And then I sort of realized at that point, this can be really anybody. It does not discriminate based off of age, sex, anything. It doesn't matter if you have a kid or if you have a full-time job, if you have other plans in life, like this can happen to anybody. And you don't need to be 40 years old for it. You don't need to have health history or family history. You can have a clear mammogram, all of these things. There's just so many strange little pieces to my story that if I even think too hard about it, it makes me feel kind of woozy, almost like, wow, what if I just dismissed it? Because I feel like so many people would have, or what if I never went to the doctor, or what if I didn't push for additional testing or whatnot? How much longer would I have lived with this, right? All that stuff makes me just really grateful, of course, that I had the universe intervene the way that it did. But I think this is all the parts of my story that I want to get out, so that people, when they read this and they share this with the women in their lives, it really just makes people stop and say, it doesn't matter if I'm healthy, it doesn't matter if I'm 40. Thoughts and prayers for me aren't going to do much, but reading this and sharing it is going to do something for you and for every other woman in your life that you send it to, whether it's a coworker, a friend, a sister, a neighbor. If you're a woman, then at any age, it's just a reminder to, at the very least, do your own self breast exam, or in my case, when there really wasn't a lump, look in the mirror and see if anything looks different, or have your partner look at you and say, I didn't really notice this before, but now I do. There's just something you can do right now to kind of go in a more proactive, self-advocating, healthful journey that's pretty easy and quick. So, I mean, for me, that's really what I wanted people to take away. It was never about like, oh, woe is me, why is this happening to me? But it's more just like, okay, it is happening to me. I am going to handle this. But, I really only am in the position I'm in because somebody else shared their story. And I learned about nipple changes being signs of breast cancer through somebody on Facebook. That's it. And so if my story can like land in front of somebody that doesn't know me, they don't need to know me, but if they can just arrive, someone sends them this link and they read this, that's who I want to impact. That's who I want to influence to go right now and look in the mirror real quick before your next Zoom call, and just say, okay, I look good. This looks the same as last month. That's all I can hope for people, is to, get ahead of the game. And because I still feel like I was ahead of the game, right, at 37 doing this stuff, but I was still at least 10 months too late. So, I had to lose all my hair because of it, and lose a bunch of weight and be sick and all that stuff. And, I want to prevent anybody else from doing that, especially young people who are moms or who have jobs, just like other things going on in their life that they don't want disrupted by this.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really powerful. And I hear listening to your intuition and advocating for yourself with your doctors, because it's
Yeah.
very easy to get your insurance plan and say, okay, this is covered, so I'll do this.
Mm-hmm.
But reading things and saying, maybe, just
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's me. And unfortunately, in your situation, that did happen. However, you used your platform
Mm-hmm.
very tastefully, and breast cancer awareness is definitely in the forefront, I think, of anyone who is following you, because you were
Yeah.
very authentic and brave in sharing your story. So can you tell me a little bit about sharing during treatment? Because that could not
Yeah.
have been easy.
No, it wasn't at all. And, I kept saying to myself things like, okay, let me just get past this next round of chemo, then I'll share it. Or maybe when this milestone, then I'll share it. And then it just kept the weeks kept going by, and all of a sudden it's October. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll share it for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, at the beginning of the month. Well, October was almost over. It was like the day before Halloween, and I still had not mustered up the strength to share. And like I said, it was twofold. One, I didn't want to traumatize people because I had already seen what happened on a smaller scale, telling my close friends and the need to know coworkers or, HR, that kind of stuff. I've already seen it impact these people. Now I'm going to do this to a whole wide net of people. I feel bad about that. And I also wasn't really ready to receive back the thoughts and the prayers from people I went to high school with, or so-and-so's great Aunt Sally. Or I was really afraid of getting emails like, oh, have you tried rubbing castor oil on your breasts, or something where it's like, dude, I'm bald and I'm in the thick of chemotherapy right now. Like, I just can't handle the myriad of responses that I think I'm going to get here, if that makes sense. And so I was kind of like, I don't want to share this. I'm not ready to share this. But I know I have to. And so I was like, okay, tomorrow's Halloween. Everyone's Facebook posts are going to be flooded with cute pictures of kids in their, trolls costumes. And I don't, I don't want to compete with that, And so if I'm going to do this and I'm going to wrap it into Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is what makes the most sense, I've got to just hit go on it. Because before this, it was like, not only was I not sharing with the social media universe, but I was kind of hiding in my own community as well. Like when I would go to the gym, I would make sure I had a hat with like hair coming out, like a hair wig. And if I saw people in the distance that I knew, I would go the other way. I mean, I just wasn't ready for somebody to see me and be like, what's going on? Did I miss something? Then they kind of talk behind my back or try to find out what's going on. And so I wanted to share on my terms, on my time. I just really didn't know when that was going to be. And finally I was like, okay, I need to basically shit or get off the pot with this news. And I finally was like, okay, I'm publishing it. And the response was exactly what I predicted. I mean, my phone blew up, whether it was Facebook or Instagram messages or text messages or people calling me. I mean, it was just exactly what I expected, that overwhelming response, and people very, very affected by it. And so I was ready, like I was braced for it. And that's exactly what happened. And, all I can say is that in the months that have passed since then, that one day of being very overwhelmed is sort of worth it, in the sense that I know there's just so many, I cannot count how many messages I've gotten of people telling me they're getting their mammograms, they're doing this, they're doing that, or asking me questions. How do I get a mammogram? Where do I go for this? What do you suggest for this? And I've had I would probably say we're up to two hands of people who have messaged me back a second time saying something was found and they're biopsying it. I can tell you that we're at zero of people who have had that be something malignant. So I do want to also use the platform to say that benign outcomes are extremely common. It is still probably going to be benign. It just can happen. There's, I think, what's the stat? 1 in 8 is going to be diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in their lives. So it's not to scare anybody, because I'm telling you, we're at 0 people other than myself that I know since my diagnosis that have been diagnosed with breast cancer as well. It doesn't mean, though, that things don't need to be explored. And so that's something, again, not to be afraid of. It's better to know and to be able to deal with those things and move on one way or another. But that, to me, the people that reach out and ask me questions or just tell me they have a mammogram appointment or just need a shoulder to lean on because they might have to go back for a biopsy or something, like, that's what I'm here for. I've signed up for that. And that makes it very, very worth it. It's, again, these people who tell me that they have to go back for something and then it was clear. It's like, I am so joyful for them and with them. And just, again, like, I know that this was my journey that I had to go through. I can handle it. I handled it pretty much. The hard stuff, most of it's behind me. I don't want anyone else to go through it. I don't want that kind of camaraderie. I'm here for anyone who has questions about it, but every time somebody is clear or, they get their benign out, literally ecstatic for them. And I'm like, yep, go on living your life, go on that vacation, do those things, keep it going. And I'll be here to kind of always champion women's health and talk about it for anybody that needs, has a question. It doesn't matter if we know each other or not. That's why my Instagram's public. That's why my post is public. And I always encourage people to reach out and ask their questions about breast health.
Yeah, you've definitely done a beautiful job creating that platform and that space. I think people share with you because you are so authentic. And it does take a lot to share your story, whether it's breast cancer or anything. It's hard to find our voice and to share, because there is, not only are there wonderful supporters out there, but there are people who want to see us be teared down. And I love that most of your responses, maybe all of them, were positive.
Yeah, they were. I don't think I had one single negative. I mean, there's some times where I wonder, am I, sharing too much? Is this becoming, is any of this too much, right? Like, too either TMI or too much insofar as like, okay, we got it, you have breast cancer, let us know when you're better, kind of a thing. But the overwhelming, like, absolutely nobody has said like, please stop, right? But there's the overwhelming majority is like, thank you for this. And I think another thing to understand, or that I kind of want to get out there for people, is that a breast cancer diagnosis, and I'm sure this is the same with any sort of major health issue, is not just limited to, like, maybe in my situation, chemo, right? Like, oh, she did chemo, she's done with it, she's fine now. The recovery of it is not lateral at all. Like, it is all over the place. And I mean, I'm almost 6 months out from my double mastectomy, and I'm still having issues that debilitate me, a couple of times a week, and make me realize like how life-changing this was. And so, I think it's not going to go away really anytime soon. I think I'll continue to learn to live with it and adjust and things like that. But the story isn't really over. It doesn't really have an end date. And I think at least, physically and mentally, these things will go on for many, many, many years to go, if not forever.
So the reason for this whole summit is to talk about hope, finding hope after grief. And can you tell me a little bit about what grief looks like with a diagnosis? And was that one of the reasons you waited to share?
Yeah, I mean, I really, really mourn the version of me that stopped existing on July 23rd or 24th, when I was called officially and told I had breast cancer. I mean, I think I knew days before that because it just wasn't looking good. My life like really stopped, and I really, really struggle even to this day, and I will struggle with this for a long, long time. It's like, it's sort of a Venn diagram. It was like initially like, I learned to have breast cancer, and it's kind of like, will I survive this? And it's like, okay, it's looking like I can. It's looking like this is treatable, right? And then circle number 2 is like, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to do chemotherapy for almost 6 months? I have a toddler. I have a full-time job. I have a life. I mean, how am I going to do these treatments? And then once that was behind me, along with some of the major surgeries and things, the third one is like, what do I do with all of the things that I had going for me before this? What do I do with them now? What happened to my hopes, my dreams, my goals, everything that I was working on before all this? Where do they go? Are they still even there? And if so, how do I just pick back up and acclimate back into society? And I think that part is what really wears on me, and what I grieve the most is just normalcy is gone. There is no normal. There's no getting back to normal. I mean, I am not a version of myself that I was this time last year. This time last year, I was in Sarasota, Florida, having a vacation with my family. It's my Facebook profile picture, and it's the last sort of normal memory that I have. And I'm struggling to up ever, because anything that happened after that is like this version of myself, right? So grief for me, it's like really struggling with the before and the after, and what do I do as I kind of move through these phases of my treatment, and my breast cancer journey. How can I be my normal self again? I mean, everything about me, essentially head to toe, has changed, right? The hair on my head under my hat today, because it's not a good hair day, is fake. I had extensions put in off of 1 inch of hair because I couldn't recognize myself in the mirror. I felt like what I imagine someone who's trans, and they look in the mirror and they do not identify with themselves until they get that haircut, get that surgery, take those hormones, whatever it is that make them feel like the version of themselves. That's how I felt when I looked in the mirror. It's like, I don't know this person, and I cannot live like this in the mirror every day. And so for me, like, I had to go and do something about that. And then a week before I got the hair extensions, I had my breast reconstruction surgery. So I had breast implants put in. In 1 week, I went from a version of myself, which was still not my normal self, but a version of myself, to someone with fake boobs and fake hair in 1 week. Who would have thought, right? And then I look at my body and I think I'm up to port scar, 2 double mastectomy scars, 2 reconstruction scars, 2 drain scars on my sides from these surgeries. And then next Monday, I go in for a total hysterectomy because my cancer was estrogen positive, which means that I have to shut off estrogen in my body completely, so that if there are any microscopic cancer cells, they can't eat that and grow. So I'm having another surgery next Monday, which is 3 more scars in my abdominal area. I mean, my entire torso is, mutilated essentially when I look in the mirror. And of course, I lost about 20 pounds during my chemo. I've put maybe 5 to 7 of those back on. It's just a version of myself that I never anticipated. And in fact, right before this call, I got this alert on my phone about my storage being full, and it said, go through pictures and videos and things and clear up. And I'm looking at the biggest files, and there's a video that I sent my son when he was sleeping over at my in-laws, probably the night before one of my chemos. And I just said, hi, love you, good night. And I am bald with no eyebrows, and I'm gaunt, and I'm pale. And I'm like, I forgot about that version of myself. And that was only 6 months ago, So there's a lot to grieve. There's the fact that my body will never be the same. I was wheeled into an OR one day and came out a whole different version of myself, and I'll never go back to the way that I was before. There's things like the fact that through a double mastectomy, you lose complete feeling in your chest. I was not really aware of this. I mean, I figured no nipple sensation, obviously, because I don't have nipples anymore, but I didn't realize there's absolutely no feeling in my chest at all. And so that is a very disorienting feeling. It's very hard to get used to. You don't feel your clothes on your body. You don't feel temperature changes. You don't feel wet or dry. So a shower, water running down your face, you kind of feel it, and then you don't feel it, and then you feel it again. It's very bizarre. If someone kind of knocks into you, or you knock into something, it's a fuzz. There's no way to explain it. It's very disoriented. It kind of almost gives you a wave of vertigo. I grieve that I will never get that feeling back. I will never feel what it feels like to have my son's head on my chest, laying on my chest or hugging me. I will never feel what that feels like again. I have no idea if there's somebody touching me or not. And same with, like, being intimate with my partner. I will never have chest feeling, or there's nothing there for me at all. And that's something that I have to deal with. And so it's kind of, look at everybody else and think they can feel their chest. They take that for granted. Like, I don't even know if I have a shirt on unless I look down. It's little things like that can be really big things to me. If I have a down day, for instance, if I'm like, wow, my nerve pain where my surgery was is really bad today. I cannot get comfortable. It's hurting me. And I look at the calendar and I think, this is 6 months later and I'm still in this much pain. When is it ever going to get better? I miss the version of myself that had no scars, didn't take any medicine. Now I'm on, a myriad of pills every day for the next 10 years. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's always going to be a lot. And, you learn very quickly that you can't fight against that at all. All you can do is learn to try to accept this as the new normal and adjust to it, and not try to go back, not try to be the person that I was before I got rolled into surgery. I'll never probably be able to do some of the same exercises I did, or lift those kinds of weights, or do those kinds of motions. And you just have to come to a place where, like, okay, that's gone and off the table now. So what is the new normal? Or let me adjust to my modified exercises or ranges of motion, and just be very grateful for the smaller wins, things I didn't think I would ever get to do again. I just went kayaking this last weekend with my husband. It was super low intensity. I mean, anybody could have done it, but just the fact that I was doing like this motion with a paddle, I was like, I never thought I'd be able to do that again. And, he did most of the work, but it's okay. Like, that's why I got a tandem one. But just, like, accepting and adjusting, it's very, very difficult. It's a long road. And I get sad. I do get sad. I have my blue days. I definitely, I don't like when people treat me differently, or, when it's the only topic of conversation at a family gathering. All those things are all reminders, and they all kind of take me to a blue place. But on the whole, just trying to find the gratitude for the fact that I'm here, that it relatively feel good, and that, modern medicine is what it is and was able to, cure me of such a terrible thing. I had that opportunity, and there's many people that don't or won't. So,
Where are you finding hope now?
I think that, as cliche as it is I have a son. He's almost 3. He was diagnosed before his second birthday. He wasn't even 2 years old. And the doctor that delivered him is the same doctor that called me and gave me my diagnosis. So at the time when that OBGYN called my phone, my son was, I think, coloring marker on my carpet in my office. And he had no idea that the doctor that just delivered him, just blew up my world. And I just remember that moment, that duality of, I have this innocent child scribbling marker in my office, and I'm on the phone trying to watch my son and also receive the news of a stage 2 breast cancer diagnosis. And it was like, as soon as I hung it up, he's like, "Mommy, can I have another color?" In my mind, it was like, my motivation comes from the fact that he's none the wiser to this, and there are times where I wish that he was older so that I could explain, what was going on, why mommy can't do this or that, or why he has to go sleep over at grandma's tonight, or whatever it might be. But overall, like, he had no idea that anything was different. And when I went to shave my head, when I started to lose my hair from chemo, I thought, I really don't want to shock him having long hair 1 minute, and then I go pick him up from the park and I have a buzzed head. So I brought him with me to that appointment, and he sat right next to me in the chair next to me, and he watched all the hair come off, and he thought it was so funny, or, he was unbothered by it. And I was like, the fact that I have this totally, like I said, innocent child that doesn't know that anything bad in the world exists, my hope is, like, I have to keep that reality going for him as long as I can. And that makes me bounce back from surgeries faster. That makes me, do all these things, like anything that I can do to get his life seemingly normal is what I'm going to do. And I think that a lot of these young women with breast cancer like me, they have kids that are young. And I think we would say the same thing. It's so hard. And there's times where I certainly wish that I didn't have any kids because, I'd rather lay in bed all day and not have to worry about picking someone up from daycare or whatever. But there's no better motivation than to try to get back to, just try to keep it going for him and keep everything innocent as long as I possibly can for him. So that's a big source of hope. And the other thing is, my writing, as you know, is something that is very precious to me. I'm not really good at a lot of things, so I can say like, oh, my writing, because that's my one talent. Some people can cook, some people can play sports, some people can sing, can't do any of those things. So writing is my jam. And for a very long time, I could not put pen to paper. And I think at first it was, I'm pregnant and then I have pregnancy brain. I cannot possibly be creative. Then I had a baby and it's like, well, now I have a baby. So I don't have any time to do this. And then it was like, I was kind of out of the woods with him and I still was feeling like foggy. And I think I look back and I'm like, oh, well, because I was living with a breast cancer diagnosis and I had no idea. Once that was addressed, even though chemo and all that stuff wreaks complete havoc on your body, I kind of felt like whatever had been going on with my mind was clearing up. And I was like, as soon as I'm done with this treatment, I'm kind of out of the woods with this, I'm motivated and I feel the creativity coming back. And I have all these ideas and all of these things that I've been scribbling down over the last months. And it's just now feels like a matter of time. When I get the time, I'll be able to find the keyboard and it will just be like normal. And that is so motivating and hopeful for me, is that I know there's a future with my writing career still. And maybe it had to be on pause for a while because of these life events, but it's going to come back. And I'm really excited for that.
What a wonderful way to find hope in an innocent child and in something like writing. And I do agree with you that grief can put a pause on writing. Life can put a pause on writing, but grief can also be a catalyst for writing. So I'm really excited to
Yeah.
see what comes forth and
Yeah.
read what you have, because you are so wonderful with words, and you did eloquently write on Instagram through this. Like every
Yeah.
time you shared, it was very tasteful and eloquent. And
Yeah.
I would ask myself, like, how is she able to share this while she's going through it? But that gift never went away.
I think, like I said, when it's the only, like, number one, I'm only here because somebody else shared their story. So I have this responsibility to share my story and keep that going. Plus the fact that I have a platform, plus the fact that I am a writer, I do write the way I talk and I talk the way I write. I mean, I have to continue to share these things. And, there is, there's a project within me about this whole situation. I knew know that. And that will find its place in the world as well. But yeah, I mean, ultimately just looking like trying to sort through those dreams and those things that I had going on before this and seeing how they can fit into this 2.0 version of me, and being able to get back to myself in those kinds of ways is so equally healing for me.
What are you grateful for today?
Today, I am grateful for motion. I'm going to say that motion. And the reason that I say that is yesterday I went for a run and it was probably about 25 minutes and it was very slow. And I stopped and I walked probably 5 or 6 times. But it was the first time that I had attempted to run since I went in for surgery, which was January 23rd of this year. And I do not remember a time during my chemo, which was 6 months prior, the entire 6 months prior to my surgery, that I ran. So it's been a while. And I've been very, very afraid to run at any speed because the impact beyond walking, the impact of my, foot hitting the ground, it reverberates in the chest area where I have no feeling. So as contradictory as that sounds, I feel something. It's not the typical feeling that anyone normal would feel if they run. Maybe they feel some jingling or they feel their skin moving. Nothing is moving, but everything is reverberating, if that makes any sense. It's again, extremely disorienting. It's a little sickening. It doesn't hurt, but it's not preferable. You don't want to push through it. It doesn't get better if you keep going. It's nothing harmful, but I did it. I ran, and I think I ran out my door. I turned onto the first street, and then within 1 minute, I texted my husband, "This is a nope for me, but I'm going to try." And he said, "You got this." And so I put my phone away for the rest of the run, and I just visualized him saying, "You got this, you got this." And I said, even if I have to walk at some point, if I have to walk home, the fact that I even ran at all, I gave it a shot, is what matters. And like I said, I stopped and I went, and I stopped and I went, but I did it. I don't feel like I want to do it again right now, but I did it. And I don't take it for granted, because I go in for my next surgery a week from today, a total hysterectomy. It's a major surgery. I'll be on some form of rest for 4 to 6 weeks. I won't be able to do that. I don't know when the next time I'll be able to do that is. So I am grateful for motion, whether that is a run, whether that is bending over to pick up a toy, whether that is bringing in my own groceries, reaching something in a higher cabinet, because these are things that at one point or another I was not able to do. And I'm going to have another setback really soon. I have to go through one more major surgery, and I don't know how it's going to affect my body. And for today, I want to be able to move around and be glad and grateful for any and all range of motion.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for being so open and honest and sharing your story with me today and with the world on Instagram. I look forward to seeing more of your shares. Where can people learn more about you, buy your amazing books?
Yeah. Go on my website, emilybelden.com. My blog is there, which is where my diagnosis story is. I think that's the most important thing. So navigate there. I have not done a post, and this is on purpose, since that post, because I want that to be the top easiest thing for somebody to find. So that's my entire diagnosis story. And that I just ask people to read it and share it. Think of one woman, preferably 8, because the statistic is 1 in 8. So if you have 8 women that you can think of, send it to them, because at some point, statistically, it will affect one of them. And yeah, you can learn about my writing and my other books there. And just like I said, I'm on Instagram. Nothing is blocked or private. So I am an open book, and you can email me. There's a contact form on my website, go straight into my Gmail. So, I am any questions or anything at all, do not hesitate to ask. And I am an open book, as we well establish.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure talking with you.